Well, Anoj Singh's name has been linked to many state capture claims. An Amabhungane investigation found that the Guptas paid for him to go on multiple trips to Dubai. As CFO, Singh was in charge of the finances of Transnet and then Eskom, and he worked with Brian Molefe. He was in charge of a deal that saw a Gupta-linked company being paid hundreds of millions of rand in advance for coal. Without this money, Tegeta would not have been able to buy the Optimum coal mine in the first place. His testimony is seen as crucial. So let's discuss further what happened today with investigative reporter for the Sunday Times, Sabelo Skiti. Sabelo, thank you for being with us. How did the Zondo Commission's legal team perform what's been called an own goal?
Evening, Franston, evening to the viewers out there. I'm still in shock, to be honest, at how, the Zondo team actually managed this entire debacle with Anoj Singh. I think not just related to the actual subpoena itself, but, the entire conduct. I mean, if you actually listen to what both parties were saying here, at some point, Advocate Seleka was saying that ignore the fact that we've put out a defective subpoena. We've been, negotiating in good faith with this other party that they are going to come before us. And I mean, the record has shown, especially in the commission itself, that people who face the allegations of the like that people like Anoj Singh and the former President Zuma faced have not shown any sort of cooperation with the commission. Given the fact that the commission has run, up until now, there's been, extension after extension, and now they've got a little time left. And the fact that there's been a lot of public discontent, number one, over the amounts of money that are spent on the commission and the length of time it's taking. And some people are actually unhappy about the sort of evidence we're hearing at the commission. This is a very, very huge mess, and I'm sure that Judge Zondo is still livid even now.
And like he says, I mean, the Zondo Commission lost a day, and right now every day is very important. Time is running out.
Yeah, it's absolutely crucial. I mean, if you look back to, part of the testimony, the appearance of Machela Koko yesterday, a lot of that was taken up by discussion over the fact that Mr. Koko wants time to actually put forward his version of what he calls state capture. We know that former PRASA CEO Lucky Montana, is also, chopping at the bit to sort of put across his version. So, and a lot of the times, the DCJ has been saying to people that we absolutely do not have time, so we can't accept, the evidence that you're bringing to us. There's a lot of people outside the people that we know that have submitted evidence to the commission, but the commission simply doesn't have the time to look at it.
All right, so the summons was invalid because it spoke about a non-existent affidavit that Singh had written. So a technicality there, but the fact is he still needs to write an affidavit. He's been given until Monday. So explain some of the issues that he has to answer to, specifically the Tegeta deal.
Yeah, look, Anoj Singh, if we sort of start at who he is, and where he fits into the whole state capture narrative. Being the financial director at Eskom and Transnet, two of the biggest state-owned companies in South Africa, and two of the biggest sites of, the most egregious looting that we've seen in recent years, is a very, very important witness for him to explain how and why the billions that left both of these organizations left. And I mean, you look at the damage that has been caused to the likes of Eskom, for instance. It's now become a threat on the fiscus. We're talking about a company that lost 20 billion rand in the year that ended in 2020. It's got over 400 billion rand in debt. The state doesn't know what to do with Eskom right now. There's debate about whether to take some of the debt off Eskom's balance sheet because of, the danger it causes to the fiscus. So he was expected to explain exactly how, number one, he moved from Transnet to Eskom immediately after Brian Molefe had been appointed as CEO of Eskom. He was also expected to shed light on his sort of thought process when he gave that 1.6 billion rand prepayment initially, that then turned into a guarantee that enabled of course, Tegeta to put in a bid for Optimum coal mining. Without that guarantee, Tegeta wouldn't have been able to actually even put forward a bid and get entertained by Glencore at that time. But the most important aspect, as you'd said, Francis, is that 659 million rand prepayment that happened in March. That was on the day that was the final day for the Gupta family to come up with the deposit for what would have been the transaction that would have seen the sale of Optimum coal mine from Glencore to Tegeta. The day that it happens, then Anoj Singh is the one that ultimately, as the financial director, writes the submission itself that then gets signed off and gets sent to the board. He then, of course, also effects the payment. That payment then, it has been shown that money was then tracked to the money that was then subsequently paid over to Glencore for the purchase of that mine. So if that prepayment itself hadn't happened, you wouldn't have had a situation where we've had the rollover effect of everything that has happened to do with the Tegeta contract at Eskom.
Yeah, and a stunning favor was done to Tegeta that other suppliers could only dream of, not only to get the contract, but to buy the company to enable them to get the contract. There's not much known about what Anoj Singh has been doing. He was a chartered accountant, struck off the role effectively, I understand. Do we know what he's been doing since Eskom?
Look, Anoj Singh has always been sort of like a very sort of private and reserved character, right? To the point where it sort of borders on arrogance or nonchalance. I remember, the thousands of times you would call him for comment on the various things that were going down at Eskom and Transnet. He would have very little to say, and he wouldn't show that he was bothered. I think this is partly why a number of people were looking forward to actually have him again sit on a public platform and actually speak about his thought process and what was happening in his mind as those transactions, were being concluded. You won't forget, of course, that subsequent investigations by National Treasury, for one, have shown that he has bought a 6 million rand house in Umhlanga in Durban, cash, and in that same month that he did that, he transferred about 16 million from his account, which had a balance of 19 million, to the trust accounts of 2 law firms. And at the time he was working at Eskom, he was earning about 7.2 million rand. So the investigators who compiled that investigative report were basically saying that there's absolutely no explanation for where that money comes from. So this would have been an opportunity for him to then sort of, explain to the nation why he did what he did. Was he aware that it was benefiting the Gupta family, and then put to bed the sort of thoughts that these millions are somehow kickbacks or payment for his compliance.
Yeah. You suggested earlier, though, that he's wanting to duck the commission. Do you think we'll ever hear from him?
I think this week is going to be interesting for the commission. I think Anoj Singh, similarly to former President Jacob Zuma, and I think Brian Molefe as well, in as much as he says he wants to go, you're going to see some tactics there that are going to try and push forward and delay, the commission actually having these people sit down and basically give their version under oath. I'm not very hopeful that he's going to actually have a day where he sits through a whole day of giving evidence.
All right, thank you very much, investigative reporter for the Sunday Times, Sabelo Skiti.